Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Pure Encouragement Podcast. I am so excited you're joining today for another episode. Today, I get to hang out with one of my favorite people on the planet, Cole Godfrey. He's an incredible brother in Christ. He's a warrior for Jesus. This man is an absolute servant leader. He was a college hockey player at Lebanon Valley. He actually was even better at lacrosse, but hockey was what took him into college. I met him when I was working for FCA Hockey back in 2013, 2014, somewhere in that range. I met Cole around that, so about a decade ago. And then we began serving Jesus alongside each other. I got to know him, and this man's heart is so strong for the Lord. You inspire me, Cole. I'm so pumped to have you today. And I know today we're going to dive into what does it look like to trust God through adversity. You've gone through some different things, not because of performance or not because of inadequacy or you just don't have the skill, but because sometimes God just directs your path in a different way. He moves you in different places, and you've been put in places where you've had to trust God through adversity. And you inspire me as a guy who is abiding in Jesus, who is trusting God with courageous faith. And I think all of us need to be encouraged by your inspiring story about how to live for the Lord when things get difficult. So, Cole, welcome to the podcast, my man. And why don't you speak to that a little bit? Tell us about your journey about trusting God.
Yeah, honored to be here, Gary. You're such a great person. I'm just lucky to be in your presence, brother. But yeah, trusting God when things seem, when trials come or things seem scary, man, it's crazy. But it was a couple years ago. I just started getting involved with the Journey group with you, and we were learning all about what it means to abide in Jesus and have a relationship with Him, and that we there's different areas of our life where we can, specifically me, I love to be in control of. I love to be the one kind of driving behind it. But I know, so that was something I was learning about. But anyway, with learning about what it means to be abiding in Jesus and trusting God, wherever it is in life, there's your plans, there's His plans. So whether it's rocky or smooth, it's we still got to trust in Him. And for me, I just really started to learn and understand all about that through the Journey program that you run, the year-long Journey group study. And anyway, so I'm learning all about this, and it was February 2024. We just found out that we're going to be having another baby coming soon. So I was praying about God, like I feel called into, just something different. I don't know what it is, but wherever you send me, Lord, like here I am. If you want me to stay here with this current job opportunity that I have, and like, then I'll make it work. I'll serve you faithfully, whatever way I can. But if not, like, and you see me going somewhere else, then here I am. I'll go there. Just you tell me what to do, Lord. And then, so a couple of days later, I found out the company that I was working for got acquired by this really big company, and they ended up letting a ton of people go. Basically, like the entire division that I work for, and I worked in Salesforce consulting, which is usually a pretty big industry to work in. But they acquired our company. Basically, said we just don't want the Salesforce consulting practice. And they ended up letting me and a number of other people go. And here I am, rocked at first. Like I consider myself a high performer at work. I don't miss deadlines. I don't screw up usually. Like that's not who I am. I like, again, like we talked about, I'm a performer. I need to perform to do well. So it kind of rocked me at first, because I'm thinking, here I am. I've been let go from my job. I have a baby coming in a few months, and I've been praying, and I'm sitting back. I'm thinking, wait a second. Like I prayed, I said, God, wherever you send me, I will go. And I don't know what it looks like, but yeah. So that's something that really rocked me at first, and I was really nervous about it. Actually, I think I called you, Gary, right before told my wife. I called you because she was still at work at the time, and I remember you saying to me that you're not being rejected from this. You are being sent on a new assignment that God's called you into. And I just thought, you're right. And I prayed for this, even though I'm like, wait, no, God, I didn't want this. Like that's like, I said, a door, don't slam a door on me, open a door for me. And I felt like at first it was slammed, but I don't know. As I more just like, even just a few hours, a few days after, I just kept thinking, all right, I prayed for this. God's going to do something here. In James 1:2, it says, consider it pure joy when you face trials, because they essentially will develop your character and develop your perseverance. So I'm like, there's something he's going to teach me here. There's something I'm going to be doing. So that he needs to, I don't know, mold and shape my life or prune out of my life or bring me into. And that's what he did. So I went on a job hunt, and in a nutshell, I just saw God provide in so many ways. It's scary at first, but I got to do so much more. Like I jokingly would say to people that I was unemployed for like almost like for like a month and a half or so, but I've never been so busy in my life with everything because I was able to get involved with your ministry more, Gary, doing stuff at home. I ended up taking a 1 month long contract job with someone who was a man of faith, and I got to be plugged in with him, and which then eventually led me to the just amazing job that I had that allowed for my wife to stay home with both of our kids and raise them. And yeah, it's just such a huge blessing. And I look back and I think that God was not, like shutting a door on me or making me face rejection or anything like that. He was calling me, and like what you told me, Gary, he was sending me on a new assignment and bringing me somewhere that I needed to be. And it wasn't all like easy. It was definitely very rocky and whatnot. But I look back, I think, thank God I went through that because it helped me persevere. It helped me grow. It helped me develop and whatnot. And not just like in my workforce, but in my faith life. Cause now I can see like it is true. Like when trials come your way, consider it pure joy, even though it's not always pure joy, because God is molding you and shaping you and calling you into something greater. So I hope that kind of answers that.
Well, that's incredible. I love that, Cole. And I think about like this statement that you keep saying over and over again. I'm not being rejected by these people. No, I'm being sent by the Lord to something greater, that God's got something bigger. He's got something he's leading me toward. And it can feel really, really difficult and painful. Like I am being rejected, but really what seems like a setback is ultimately a setup for something even greater in this moment. And like it says in Psalm 84, it says that God withholds no good thing from those who walk uprightly. Or in Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. We think about Genesis 50, verse 20, where it says, what you meant for evil, God intended for good. Like this is who our God is. He is someone who brings about abundance through the trial and through the pain. But here's the thing that inspires me about your response and your story is instead of letting anxiety and fear and stress control you, you lean into the Lord, you set your eyes on him, and you willfully choose in your heart that I am going to trust the Lord. And God fills you with this peace and this joy and this fruit to where you start serving. You start generously offering your time instead of anxiously toiling to try to go make money. You're trying to hear from the Lord about, God, where are you leading me to go? And I have a baby on the way. Yes, but God, you're calling me to serve, and you're leaning into being a man of God who trusts the Lord, rather than trying to take this whole thing into your hands. It's amazing. All right. So going back a little bit into your story, how do you even get to a point like this in your life? So, if you backtrack, were you always like this growing up? Did you always have a faith in God? Did this happen later in life? What was your story to come to a point where God's faithfulness started to exceed the fear of your circumstances and you began to trust God? Give us some backstory.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah. When you said the thing about setbacks are actually setups, and that's such a big part of my story now that I look back and I at the time as a young kid, I didn't know what I look at my life. I'm like, oh yeah, all these setbacks you face are really setups for something in the future. But in a nutshell, I grew up in a loving Christian home. I had two great parents. They put us in church all the time, and they were always in the house of God. And I look back and I think, thank God they were, because I think how great that is. But they did everything they could to make sure that we were modeling a life of Jesus, Sunday school, everything we were in. But we moved around a lot as a kid. So I think I've shared with you before that I've lived in 8 different states before I was even 18. We just moved around a lot for my dad's job. And something that was so consistent in our life, wherever we went, was ice hockey, like me playing ice hockey and any other sports. So sports and our church life, because that's how it always seemed to go. We'd get plugged into a church and to any sort of sports program, because there's a lot of kids in my family, so our parents wanted us to make sure we were active. So, but anyway, I noticed, but when we'd move every 2 to 3 years, it felt like, and for me, when you're that young and you start over, that's kind of your whole world, your friend group, your status, your popularity, whatever it may be. And I felt like for me, every time, everywhere we'd go somewhere, I'd get friends, we'd have to move and start over. And I always kind of felt behind in my life and whatnot. So just a little, just I don't know, not I'm behind with the group or just behind in school. I've always struggled in school my whole life, and so I always kind of felt like I was just a little bit behind everybody. So there's that setback that I've been saying. And but anyway, dialing it forward to like my high school and college times. I mean, like I said, I grew up in church, so I knew everything about church. I could walk the walk, or I could talk the talk, but not really walk the walk. And I had real no interest in anything related to living my life for Jesus, because that's not what I felt like made me cool. I guess that's not what helped me make friends or whatever. So I was really focused on, just pursuing whatever I felt like in life, and that, just earthly things, we'll say, and wanting to be the best in the sports that I played, or wanting to be the most liked. So yeah, so I was really kind of just off my rocker. And in college, I just remember it was the first time for me, like I said, I've been defined by wanting to be a good hockey player or just being liked really well. And in college was the first time I faced adversity with being scratched from a lineup. And if anyone doesn't know what it means to be scratched from a lineup, it means you're a hockey team carries 5 lines, but you can only dress 4 of the lines for the game. And when you get scratched, it means you're good, you're healthy enough to play. It's just the coach doesn't have any faith in you. And that just rocked me, because I thought, wow, well, I am someone who's like, if I'm not good at hockey, people aren't going to like me. Or if I'm not just anything, whatever, if I'm not performing well, people may not want to be around me. So because I wasn't performing well in ice hockey from my own standards per se, I felt like I needed to seek validation elsewhere by being, the life of the party, or being a funny guy, or just doing things that will make people see me as, I don't know, cool, funny, relevant, whatever it may be, just staying in the mix, and just everything so earthly in regard to sparing details. But so I felt so low in my life in college. I felt like I was lost, and I've tried everything. And like I said, I'm a control freak, so I want to be in control. But it was when I said, you know what? Like, I just feel called to try to get my life set back. Get my, as I say, like, get right with God again. And I just remember seeing somewhere that there's an organization called Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and that they were actually having a hockey camp, like right near where I was living at the time in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And so I signed up, and I said, hey, yeah, if you guys need to volunteer, I'd be happy to come and help if I don't know how it works. And within 20 minutes, the person called me back and said, hey, that's great. We'd love to have you. We'll see you on August 5th or whatever the date was. And I just thought that was almost too easy. That's crazy. But anyway, we get there. I get there at this camp, and I'm just like, whoa, this is insane. I look around, there's all these kids everywhere, which is such a blessing and overwhelming at the same time. All these young kids that are looking to chase Jesus and grow their hockey career. And then I look around, and there's other people on staff, and we'll call them camp counselors or whoever, that are playing at some of the highest levels. There's guys who are playing professionally, college, junior hockey. They're up and come. So anywhere like that. And I'm looking around, these guys are stud hockey players, and they're so on fire for God that they're traveling around, going camp to camp, pouring into kids. And I think, oh my goodness, these guys are doing it at some of the highest levels. And I'm over here, and I'm just thinking, like, I'm so just not at the level of these guys. And I'm a camp counselor here as well too, volunteering, but it just rocked me for the first time. Like, and I just jokingly say that it's like, wow, there are some cool Christian guys out there as well too, because I didn't always have that viewpoint. But anyway, I know I'm probably being long-winded here, but the thing that rocked me the most is I just saw how on fire people were for God. And I always say that there was this really studly guy who gave a talk one night at this camp, and he talked about what it means to be a fan or a follower, and with kind of a sports analogy, a fan of Jesus or a follower of Jesus. So are you in the thick of it, or with Jesus? Like, do you just say, like, yeah, I'm a Christian, I love God, but you live your life another way? Or are you someone who follows Jesus, whether there's persecution or reward or whatever? Are you in it with him day in and day out? Or you just only want to cheer for Jesus when he wins or whatever, and things like that? And I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm the biggest fan you'll ever see. And then this guy talking continued to talk about identity in Christ and what it means, and how you're not defined by your performance or what people say about you or think about you, because God's already declared you to be holy and worthy and created perfect in his image. And he loves you, and you are chosen, you are sought after. And again, I just was rocked. I mean, rocked by this. And I thought, here I am. I'm here helping these kids, teach them about Jesus. And I'm like, I know nothing. I feel like I've just been like, the Holy Spirit grabbed a hold of my heart. And I just remember that the person speaking was like, hey, if you feel called to either give your life to Jesus or recommit your life, I want you to stand up. And I mean, I was like, oh no, I can't stand up, because that's embarrassing, or I don't even know if I'm allowed to. If I'm a camp counselor, am I allowed to be recommitting my life? But I did. I stood right up there and I gave my life back to Christ, and I just knew like that was it. I was like, this is the moment. Like, I'm never going back. And it just rocked me, like I said. And the guy that was, and I always like to end with this, that the guy that was giving the speech was you, Gary Steffes, the man himself, who, like I said, God put it on your heart. And I know you're just doing what you're doing in your giftedness. You're speaking, and everyone loves when you speak. And he just, like, it felt like you said, Cole Godfrey, you're the one I'm going to speak to tonight. This is the message for you. And yeah, and oh man, it rocked me. It like really did. It changed my life in so many ways. And yeah, I'm grateful for you that you gave that. So that's kind of where it all started, man.
Well, thanks for the encouragement,
bottom.
man. I love it, man. It's so encouraging. I love how you talk about the fan versus the follower. And that I've thought about that for years now. And in my own life, just wanting to be someone who is in the game, not someone who's sitting on the sidelines, looking at the game or watching the game, so to speak, or even someone in the stands that is staying at a distance and just, celebrating the wins that, people are having as God's moving in the earth. I want to be in the game, and it takes courage to be in the game. Sometimes you get hit when you're in the game. Sometimes you have to go through adversity, or you have to endure, or you got to work hard. Like, there's things about being in the game that aren't always easy. People aren't always happy with you. Sometimes there's different challenges, but there's also the opportunities that when you score, or when there's these huge moments that happen in a game, you're a part of it, and you win a championship. You're a part of it, and it's different than what it feels like with the fan experience. But yes, I think about that in my own life, is with my walk with God, like every day, going on offense and getting in the game. Well, okay, so your story of coming to trust Jesus in your life, we talked about at the very beginning how God is not rejecting you, he's sending you. And this is a point where you are trusting the faithfulness of God in the face of fear, and fear is not controlling you, but you're trusting the Lord. And so bringing in your story now, you didn't exactly grow up with this vibrant walk with Jesus. It was actually through the trials of your college career. You encounter Jesus at this FCA camp. Well, we'll close the gap. How do you go from that moment where you come to Christ, you're all in yet again, I'm going to be a follower of Jesus. This is a big step of faith, to where you are today, a decade later, and you're trusting God in the face of job loss. You're trusting God even when you have a baby on the way, in the face of all that financial instability. What happens to where you start to abide in Jesus to such an extent and you trust him? Give us a little bit more context on that, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I just look back at my whole life, and I just keep thinking, like, there's certain things where I felt like God was, like I said, it may feel like again, like a setback or a trial, but he was actually putting me right on the path that I needed to be. So I just think if he's done it before, he'll continue to do it again, because I look back and I think, thank God that I had that obstacle and that trial, because my life was, I felt like it was just, I was so lost, or I was so far from God and lost, but it led me to, like I said, FCA, turning my life around. And then it got me back into college, and I was leading FCA, where I got to meet my wife, Sammy, at there. So we met through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes on the campus that I was at. And so I just keep looking, I just keep thinking, as far as what you asked with moving forward, is if I feel like if I just continue to seek Jesus, if I know you say it a lot, Gary, if I sit at the feet of Jesus daily and just abide in his word, really reading, digesting, applying it into my life, then wherever God sends me, I'm going to go. So for me, I feel like that's just what it needs to be all about, is just abiding and focusing on him, and just continuing to trust him, because I've seen him do so many great things before. And so Um, he'll
Well,
I
you're really speaking to remembering the works of God.
Mhm.
And I think about this, like when you're in the middle of the fire, it's so easy to get focused horizontally on the what ifs of what's in front of you. What
Mhm.
if I don't get a job quickly? What if this thing falls apart, and you try to control things? You mentioned that at the very beginning of your story, that you can try
Yeah.
to control things. It's so easy to get sucked into focusing on the horizontal and controlling things. And it's a real step of
Mm.
faith to get our eyes off of that and onto the Lord vertically. But I think
Mm.
about Isaiah 26:3, and this is something that I think you've really lived out and something that you're setting an example for all of us in. But it says this in Isaiah 26:3, it says that you keep him in perfect peace.
Mm.
The one who keeps his mind fixed on you because he trusts you. Trust in the Lord forever, for God the Lord is the everlasting rock. And when I
Mm.
read that, I see two things. I see that our eyes are fixated on the Lord, and our heart, the second thing is our heart trusting in the Lord. You're living both these out. Even in the middle of the fire, you're not focusing on controlling your circumstances. You're focusing on, how do I stare at Jesus, the faithfulness of God, and I remember the things that he's done. And then I
Mm.
willfully choose in my heart that I'm going to trust him.
Mm.
And in
Yeah.
that place, God fills you with perfect peace, and you make different decisions. And
Mm.
then look at God provides, what seemed like a setback turns into a setup. And I think that's
Mm.
an encouragement to so many people right now who are facing these different things. I've had so many people call me with job loss or job transitions or with different adversities in their sport, or there's a lot of things that are going on. And we face these
Mm.
things as men and women of God. So last thing I want to ask is if there's somebody that is maybe facing a significant trial in front of them right now, what
Mm.
would you encourage them to do? How do they spend their time? How do they get their eyes on Jesus? What have you learned that you would encourage somebody in that scenario? Would love for you to share.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that is, and I thank you for all those kind words, brother. It means a lot. And for if someone's going through their trial right now, like I said, when if you can be anxious and worry about stuff and fix your mind on that, then you can worship God, because doing the opposite, replacing those thoughts of like, what if I never get a job? What if I get cut from this team? What if I can't provide for my family? What if like whatever it may be, insert your thing that you're struggling with. What if I'm not enough? And if you take every one of those phrases that you're thinking about and you replace it with God's truth, and you continue to just hammer that home like you've taught me over the years, um, it's just crazy how your mindset will change, because you I think all the time of like, there's things I can dwell on or be anxious about, but that's not what God says. And God, who's the creator of the universe, who's designed me, you, everyone else perfect in his image, and the who am I to deny what the creator of the universe says? Because like, who's incapable of flaw or error, but he's got everything good, but I need to fix my mind on the negativity of my life. But so I just say replace, just continue. It's not an easy thing right away, but just continue to replace all those negative thoughts or anxious thoughts with what God's truths are. Where, what if I can't provide for my family? I just think of Matthew 6:33: seek the kingdom of heaven above all else, and God will give you all that you could ever need. And just, there's so many other verses like that. So,
Yeah, I love that.
that's what
Actually,
I would say to
I
people.
think about that Matthew 6:33 verse, the NLT version for me is really impactful, because it says, "Do not worry about your life, what you'll eat or what you'll drink or what you'll
Mhm.
wear." In the NLT version, it says this: it says, "These things dominate the thoughts of the unbelieving,
Yep.
but your heavenly Father knows what you need. So seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you."
Yeah.
That ministers to me greatly, because these waves of anxiety can hit, and stress and fear can hit, and we can try to take control of our scenario. And in doing that, we get our eyes off of God, and we get filled with fear, not with peace. And what
Mhm.
you're speaking to is, if I will just get my eyes off of my circumstances, back on the Lord, I will
Mhm.
seek first his kingdom, and I will not let those things dominate my thoughts. No, no, I'm going to let the truth dominate my thoughts. I'm going to let the Lord and his character and his presence, and like you were saying earlier, remembering the things that he's done, when that dominates my thoughts, now I get filled with this strength and this courage. And the last thing I'll say on that actually is I think you live this out, Cole, in a really inspiring way, because it's one thing to think that way. It's another thing to go on mission with Jesus and actually take steps of faith. And this is something I witnessed in you, is when you lost your job a little while ago, a year or two ago, in that moment, you were fighting to fix your heart and your mind on Jesus. But you didn't just stop with doing that. You actually took action and you stepped up to volunteer and serve in the Pure Encouragement Ministry with no pay. In fact, you denied me, paying you anything. And you stepped out in faith to volunteer and to serve. And for a guy who needs money to provide for his family, to step in faith because God's put it on his heart, like that was an incredible fruit and generous action. But what you lived out was, my eyes are on Jesus, my heart is trusting, and I'm going to seek first his kingdom. And I'm going to still be the same man of God that I was 3 weeks ago when I did have a job. I'm going to trust the Lord. And this is something God's telling me to do, so I'm in. And you inspire me with that very much so, bro. I love it. Any final words that you would say to our community as we're fighting to live victoriously?
Yeah. Like I said, just I appreciate those words, man. And I would just say, continue to seek Jesus. It can be so easy to like, you're talking to me, a control freak. I want to be in control. It can be so easy to want to rely on ourselves. But when we trust in God, and we say fully trust, don't just trust here and there, fully surrender to him, and he'll be able to, I'm sure there will be times where we're rocky, but he'll continue to just show you how good he is and how willing and how much he loves you, and just things like that. So yeah. And I'll just even say too, like, I would encourage anyone, if you're not involved in the Pure Encouragement community, get involved, because it's been such a blessing in my life, my family's life. So and the people that we've been able to involved in, just meet and be involved in with, and those journey groups, it's a huge blessing in my life. So I would encourage anyone to get involved there too. And you didn't tell me to say that. I'm just always out here telling people that. So
I love you, brother. You're a blessing, man. Thanks for the encouragement. Yeah. And friends, I would second that. If you want to get plugged in, you can find all the information at the links below. Check out the Pure Encouragement website. We have journey groups for men. We're chasing intimacy with Jesus. We're fighting to abide in Christ and live victoriously. We have men from all over the country that meet on Tuesday and Wednesday mornings. Also, there's a women's community that's growing, and I know your wife's involved in that, Cole. If there's any women that want to get involved, they meet on Wednesdays. Would love to have them plugged in. But yeah, that's what we do at Pure Encouragement. We fight to strengthen people to live confident, victorious lives in Christ. Cole, you're an example of that. You inspire me. I'm honored to be running alongside you, brother. God is so good, man. I love it. Amen. And just thank you so much for being on. So friends, thank you.
To be here.
Good. Yeah. Friends,
thank you. It's an honor to be here, brother. You're the man. I'm so lucky to know you, brother.
I love it. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining the Pure Encouragement podcast today. Keep attacking your week with strength. Keep speaking life to those in your life. You have no idea the impact you can make when you choose to speak life to someone's soul. God bless.